What's up YouTube, Capital G here, showing you guys the first place deck list from the Robert Chan sponsored Mega Pack competition. This is what Dreamer Dragon used to overtake 255 other duelists, and the deck operated and ran really smoothly. So obviously, as you guys can see, it was Blue Eyes, and Blue Eyes is a really good deck, especially in the OCG. I would say it's even like top 3. Obviously, people will point out that in the OCG, the meta is drastically different. Decks like Monarchs have been kind of neutered. Same thing can be said about Burning Abyss. The reason you don't see so much Blue Eyes play right now, even though Shining Victories has been kind of released, like it's been out for a little while, people will say, well, if it's so good, why isn't anybody playing it in the TCG? And it's really the same type of situation that DDDs are in, where we just don't have the full archetype, or we don't have all the support. I mean, granted, I guess you could say, no, I'm just gonna say we don't have all the archetype cards. 2 cards definitely that we need before you can play this deck at full power. One of them is Gospel Revival. This card will be out the first week of July, and I believe it will be legal for nationals. Gospel Revival is huge. It essentially just revives any of your big dragons, and you do run a lot of them in most of these Blue Eyes builds. It revives them from the graveyard, but then at the same time, it gives them a layer of protection, and it's really good because it's a quick effect too. So if your dragons would be like, run over by battle, or if your opponent tries to regek you or something like that, it's just an instant way to protect your dragons. And what's really important is it works on the synchros and the fusions too. So if you happen to bust out like, Twin Burst Dragon, or if you happen to go into Spirit Dragon, which this deck it'll go into Spirit Dragon, and then Spirit Dragon will generally transition into like a Zurai Silver Dragon, especially if your opponent tries to like Dark Destroyer it, because Silver Dragon has a huge butt. It's 3,000 ass, so most decks can't just run it over in battle unless they're using like Utopia the Lightning or something like that. But you can bring these guys back, and then most notably, I would say Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon. This card, in my opinion, is key to the deck, not just because it counts as a Blue Eyes monster when it's on the field, so that means obviously you can go into, like you can go into Spirit Dragon and whatnot, but it just has the Blue Eyes stats, and it kind of it has every single like sense of Blue Eyes, which means that it's a level 8, so it makes trade-in like much more consistent in the deck. The fact is, after you properly summon it, I believe you can actually summon it back from Gospel of Revival, which is really neat, and the card is just good too because it has instant monster removal built into it. Now, one of the other good things about this card is it being level 8 means that you're pretty much going to be maxing out on Blue Eyes and White Spirit Dragon, or excuse me, Dragon Spirit of the White, which I still think of as White Ka Dragon. It means that you can go into some really good extra deck plays. Now, he didn't run Soul Charge in his variants. I wouldn't fault you if you did run Soul Charge, because there's so many ways to get these cards in the graveyard. Whether it be trade-in, whether it be discarding them for Twin Twister, whether it be using Sage's effect, which you saw him use in the finals, where he sent an effect Veiler to the graveyard. That bringing all those cards back and then going into like these big beefy Xyzs is really powerful. Or just being able to bring back the Xyzs in general, because if I'm not mistaken, yeah, that's what I thought. If you make one of these Xyzs, the Gospel Revival will actually protect them as well. So that's actually pretty cool. You see, he runs most of his rank 8s are just primarily dragon. I believe every single rank 8 in here is a dragon. I think that has to do with the fact that Gospel Revival adds protection onto these. So it's like Titanic Galaxy is already a very difficult card to kill, but in this deck it's even more difficult. I like that he ran the 2-2 split of hand traps, which is Effect Veiler and Maxi. Effect Veiler is pretty much going to be staple in every variant of Blue Eyes that you're going to see, mainly because you can summon Sage and you can just search out Effect Veiler from your deck. I mean, and I can't think of another deck that can do that, so that's really good. Now, we saw him using the finals, the Drowning Mirror Force, and I've just been talking about this card all day and all day and night, and how good it is. It's really good in decks like these, where you don't even run a high trap count, because your opponent can never really put you, like you never really know what that is. Like maybe Blue Eyes will set a card and you might think that it's like a Silver's Cry or something like that. And, Spell and Trap Destruction isn't necessarily great against this deck anyways, because there's always the chance that they could, set like a bluff Gospel Revival, and then they could use that effect from the graveyard. So this isn't a deck that's going to set a lot of cards anyway. So people might even be looking to side out Twin Twisters, as, you're not going to keep Twin Twisters Twister and just to hit something like Mausoleum on the white. It's a one of. It's really not even that important. So, I mean, I guess in general, Blue Eyes is, I would say, a really good deck. I think that this card right here, Dragon Spirit of the White, is amazing. The fact that you can summon it from the deck and that you can banish back row is really, really important. Also, the fact that it doesn't actually destroy is very important because it gets around, it gets around cards like Pendulum Call. If your opponent activates the Pendulum Call and then they have, like 2 Magician Pendulums and they can't be destroyed until I think it's the opponent's next turn or something like that, you can still use something like Dragon Spirit of the White and you can just banish the card, which again, all these plays that I'm saying actually happen in the finals. And a card like Maiden of Eyes with Blue is just always going to be a really good card in Blue Eyes, being able to stop attacks if you target it or your opponent target it. Your opponent's probably not going to target it, but you can target it yourself in this deck with Sage of Eyes, or excuse me, Sage with Eyes of Blue. You can target it yourself and then you get 2 Blue Eyes, so that's pretty cool too. I think the deck is really solid. I think it'll be a lot better when we get all the cards, most notably this. It's really unfortunate that we have no idea when Alternative is coming out. This card's coming out in July, but the one thing I will say for anybody who's looking to pick up Blue Eyes or play it competitively, I do think it can be played competitively. I think it's really good. I don't think it's as good as the top 3, like Monarchs, Cosmos, and Burning Abyss / PK Fire or whatever, but the deck is not actually that cheap. Like it's kind of in that category of like Blue Eyes and Red Eyes and Dark Magician, where even if the deck isn't super great, it's still gonna be fairly expensive because they're just like fan favorite cards. You know what I mean? Cards like Melody of the Awakening Dragon, that's actually gone up in price. Drowning Mirror Force, which you totally don't need for this deck, isn't the cheapest. And then this card right here is actually a secret rare. It's like $20. So a lot of the cards are like secret because they were essentially the chase cards for the set. Now, essentially, the extra deck was pretty much tailor made to beat a Performapal deck, to beat Pendulums. So that's why you see him side so heavily for, just like anti-Pendulum. You see the 3 Fairy Winds, the 3 anti-spell fragrances, despite the fact that he runs a good amount of spells in here, 17 spells in the main deck. But just in general, I would say that pretty much card for card, this can be a very successful deck on the regional level. You probably just have to adjust your extra deck, like, your side deck. You'd have to bring in things like some Mask of Restricts and probably some system downs and whatnot. You're not going to be summoning any machines. Everything in this extra deck, actually I think every single card in this extra deck is a dragon. Wow, I just realized that everything in this extra deck is actually 100% dragon. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But just wanted to show you guys the deck profile and let me know what you think. I thought it was well built. Some people might say that it's a little cookie cutter, but there isn't that much room for deviation. Some of the cards, like, you might want to run less or less or more or something like that. But in general, I think this is a very solid build. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching as always.